Did you just try to orange pill your family over Thanksgiving and fail? You're not alone. There's probably a lot of you out there who just tried to shill your parents' $80,000 Bitcoin down from its all-time high of $126,000. This is how not to orange pill your family over the holidays.
Money will come and go. We know that. The most important thing in life will always be the people in this room. Right here. Right now.
That's right. It's all about family, Colin. We're a family and we're in this together, whether money is here, or it's there. And
in case you were wondering, if you were not watching on video, that was Vin Diesel. It was not Sylvester Stallone. They seem to have the same kind of garbled intonation, but it's all about the family and the family that you told to buy Bitcoin at 126,000 because it was going up. It's all about them this Thanksgiving and Christmas because they are going to come for blood and they are mad at you. They are increasingly angry. They're having to take out second mortgages on their home. Their children are eating out of tin cans. And it's all your fault. Now, of course, I don't believe that, but this is how your relatives see you when you show them Bitcoin and then it crashes.
Yeah, I'm just asking for a friend. Can you take a HELOC out on a HELOC? How does that work? I don't really know. Can you do credit cards against a HELOC? Just putting that out there.
That's like the final boss of the cousin shilling Bitcoin is the one who's bragging about taking out 0% interest credit cards and then rolling them over each expiry period into a new 0% interest credit card so they can aggressively stack Bitcoin.
Yeah. And the thing is, that can work for some people. But the problem with trying to get your family to do it is that it's very hard to escape them. For other people who shill Bitcoin too, you can just deactivate your Twitter account and close the DMs. But your mom's still going to come up, knocking on your door and be like, son, lost the house again. Put it on the Bitcoin. Not actually. So I don't know. We prepared a little bit of analysis on how well your previous holidays would have performed had you shilled Bitcoin to your family over Thanksgiving dinner, and then how it performed up until the following Christmas. But then also, we are going to genuinely give you a couple pieces of advice. I think stuff that's worked in our lives for at least orange pilling, because this is a hard job. Your parents, your aunts and uncles may still see you as that young precocious child who still poops in diapers, and now you're trying to tell them that their stocks and bonds are worthless. So just take everything with a grain of salt. So first of all, I think I'll point out that here is a article that we wrote for the newsletter this past week. If you hadn't read it, blockspacemedia.newsletter. Newsletter.blockspacemedia.com. And basically, I took the past 13 years, since 2012, and looked at the Bitcoin performance from Thanksgiving Day to Christmas Day of that year. And I have a chart, but for the visually impaired or those who are only listening, this chart basically shows that of the 12 years, the from 2012 to 2023, we have 6 up years and 6 down years. 2024, believe it or not, was just about perfectly flat. So we have a total coin toss, whether based on historical data, Bitcoin is higher or lower the next time you have a family dinner on Christmas. What does that mean? Well, if your family, if you believe historical precedent does indicate the future, then it's pretty much a coin toss whether your family will be happier or madder at you by the time St. Nick comes into town.
What stands out to me in this chart is really what an aberration the 2017 bull run was.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the returns here between Thanksgiving and Christmas, obviously we're not looking at 2015, 2016, and 2017 in full with this, But the fact of the matter is, like, you had holiday run ups in 14 and in 15, 16, and 17. And 2017, I think you could probably put it on the map as like the first year of the Bitcoin Thanksgiving talk.
Yeah.
You know, and at least in terms of it becoming a wider phenomenon in the cultural conscious, because like that was, you know, one of Bitcoin's most notable bull runs, in the sense of, I think that was the bull run that really cemented the fact that Bitcoin wasn't going away to a lot of people. It attracted more interest. And because of that, 2017, I think, has also spoiled our collective memory for what bull run should be, because it was such a spectacular run.
Yeah.
Not just 2017, but 2016. The entire lead up to that bull run was just one mega leg up. And everyone keeps looking back to, in some ways, I think 2017, obviously in the 2020 cycle, they did for what was going to happen. And then we still kind of have done that for the most recent cycle of trying to look at historical returns. Obviously, past performance is not indicative of future results, and Bitcoin's returns are diminishing over the course of its history. That's not to say that it's not still going up. Obviously it is, but the rate of return and the volatility is smoothing out, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is the biggest takeaway from this. Is 2017 was really a special bull market. They're looking back to 2017 as indicative of what Bitcoin can and should be doing in these bull runs.
And it's crazy because I think, you know, a lot of people would like to compare year-on-year performance. This is basically selecting 1 month, like basically a 30-day period. And this is crazy for any asset to have like a 30%, any major asset to have like a 30% plus swing in a month. But that is commonplace for Bitcoin. You have up 12%, down 25%, up 30%, down 20%. Like, this is wild. I'll point out the GOAT Thanksgiving shill year was 2020. The COVID shill is the absolute GOAT Thanksgiving shill, because that was when, again, 2020, we brainhold it. That was COVID year. The helicopter money had landed over the summer, I believe. And the second stimmy check was going to hit at the end of December. So that, a lot of people forget, like, back when Bitcoin recaptured its all-time highs of like 20K in back in 2020, that happened almost entirely like in that like latter part of the year, in that holiday season. And then it went on to run another 3x going into the spring to hit 60, 70,000. So like that was the all-time GOAT Thanksgiving shill. Another data point I want to point out is a lot of people think back to like historically the FTX moment, which was when FTX collapsed in the first week of November. So remember, that was like the sentiment all-time low for everybody at Thanksgiving. Like everybody, like, I like, you know, it was like a joke on our industry where like nobody wants to show up at Thanksgiving because like you were absolutely shamed if you were not just like working in it, but even just had like exposure to the scam of an industry. But 2022, FTX collapses. Bitcoin only drew down an additional 3.6% until that following Christmas. So it's funny, like Bitcoin was relatively flat compared to like all the other years that particular year. It's really funny to actually step back and look at the real numbers of the holiday performance. Just vibes aside. I'll also point out that I think maybe the most underappreciated, like bad shill year was 2013. Kind of predates most people, but the sequence of events was Russell Ulbricht got nabbed for the Silk Road that fall, like September 2013. November happens. That's like right after the Pico top of the 2013 run, which hit like $1,200, $1,300 per Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin crashes. Early Q1 2024, Mt. Gox collapses. So I think you had one of the longest drawn out bear markets from 14 to early 16, mid 15. And so that was like the worst time to have shilled Bitcoin.
That's part of the reason why 2017's bull run was so incredible, is you had this immense selling pressure from both Silk Road seizure and from Mt. Gox. You had people thinking Bitcoin was dead now. Its primary use case for online commerce seemed to have been completely scattered to the wind by authorities, and its premier exchange was insolvent. I wasn't around back then. I know you were. I imagine the sentiment was horrible. Most people thought Bitcoin was dead. Even some of the true believers. Anyway, that's, it goes to show why 2017 was such a memorable bull market. I mean, that was my first one, so maybe that's why.
And it was also ICO year. Like that's when altcoins and ICOs were really hot. So it's like, it wasn't just Bitcoin that year. That was the year when actually it was probably most difficult to explain Bitcoin, because I was like peak block size war, or right after the block size war. Ethereum's the cool cryptocurrency on the corner, and every dog and their dog is like buying some Dentcoin ICO, and it's the future of finance. And so
that's a really important point, I think, for that bull run. And every bull run comes with alt picks and everyone's favorite shitcoin, right? But the 2017 bull run really was marked by the proliferation of these initial coin offerings. All of them were going to apply blockchain to everything, and there were multiple different platforms like Ethereum or Ethereum-like clones that were trying to be the center of finance for the internet. And a lot of these projects were trying to outcompete Bitcoin. In fact, if you go back and read a lot of the white papers from that ICO era, they're always trying to pick apart proof of work and all these other things. But I'm glad you mentioned ICOs, because I actually have one clip I wanted to pull up really quickly about, if you had chilled ICOs in 2017, as long as they got out, and they probably didn't, they might have done okay during the blow off top. Let's go back to 2020. If you were savvy enough and you were saying, hey, look at this DeFi yield farming stuff, maybe your family got in on that and they did well if they sold before it blew up. If you had shilled coins in the last year to your family, though, they would probably be feeling a little bit like this.
We're at the top of the... No!
Because you think, okay, maybe the losses are done. I haven't lost. We're not going to lose 100%, right?
Please! God, please!
I'm sorry. I had to play that because that came up recently. It was a tweet. It was a tweet that came up on my X by Pixel, and it says Bitcoin drops 20% alts, and then it shows that video, which is a clip from a simulator called Baby Steps.
It's one of those like futility simulators of you like literally manually climbing up Mount Everest. They're really clumsy. It's like a 3D co-op, if you're familiar with that old school game. So I think the last thing to say on the back testing the numbers for this is that yes, while it's like literally coin flip whether Bitcoin goes up or down, the magnitude of how much happier they are than they are angry with you is a little uneven. So to tease that out, Bitcoin's average returns over all holiday seasons is 6%, plus 6%. So as I like to say, statistically, if your drunk uncle does the math, they're likely to be more happy than they are sad if they are happy. So, but the question is, let's say you just can't not talk about Bitcoin this Thanksgiving. Let's say you have to do it. And you're like, how do I shill my parents' Bitcoin? Maybe you've tried this before. Maybe you pulled out a whole like BTC sessions video and you wasted 2 hours of everybody's time. And you told them all to buy Cold Card, Mark 3s back in the day. Great product, by the way. But I'm just saying, like, nobody wants to be like 3 glasses of wine in and like filled with tryptophan and trying to like figure out how to like add a 25th word seed phrase to their weird calculator device.
Like when your angry uncle is asking you, slightly inebriated, why you buy Bitcoin and how you make sure you can't lose it and what happens if you lose your wallet, and you respond in a drunken slur, well, I have my private keys memorized in my head. Checkmate. It's actually not a selling point to these people. That's scary to them. They have to think even harder about how to protect their wealth. This is the generation of the passively invested 401k in the housing market bubble. Yeah. They don't want to have to put any effort into their investments.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised that a lot of these boomers like remember or still do call their broker on the phone when they want to make a trade. Guys, this is still like commonplace.
You literally described my father-in-law.
Yeah.
Love him to death.
Yeah. They don't even text their broker. Why would you text? When you could just call. So like this is the person. So as much as like I personally want to endorse self-custody, the numbers do not lie. The numbers, according to the River 2025 Bitcoin adoption report, paint a very clear picture. The people who are buying Bitcoin are doing it through funds and ETFs and under business entities. The days of the individual like self-custody ownership of Bitcoin are waning or declining. That is, there's this great chart, which we actually covered earlier this year. We dove into this report where there's a poetically even net increase and decrease in ETFs holding Bitcoin and individuals holding Bitcoin, according to this chart from 2024, where funds and ETFs added 500,000 Bitcoin to their like holdings, whereas individuals reduced their holdings by 500,000. Now it's probably a lot of individuals rolling it into like their BlackRock ETF, IBIT or Bitwise or whatever. But this is just the reality in that this is where the Bitcoin adoption is occurring. This may not be, you may not like it, but this is what Bitcoin adoption looks like in 2025. So like it is probably, it may be the issue, listener, is that you haven't been able to get them in the door at all. Maybe they just need to put that toe in the water. Maybe they just need to put a foot in the door. Maybe you need to get a foot in their door and they just buy a few shares of IBIT just to see it. IBIT's lower unit price. It's not as scary. It's not $100,000. It's only like $50 per share. That's super cheap.
Well, and also there's an argument to be made that they don't have to commit any liquid capital that they have, and it's capital that's already locked up in an investment account that they might not view in the same way as investing $10,000, $20,000 that they have in their checking or savings account.
Yeah.
Right? When I was aggressively orange pilling my dad, I mean, he's already orange pilled, but he's stubborn. He's a gold bug. So when I was really pushing on it recently, given the recent sell-off, the thing that really made him be more open to buying right now is the fact that he could roll over some of his 401k into IBIT or into Fidelity. He didn't want to do the BlackRock one.
That's a good point because like a lot of people, the boomers might have saved, 1, maybe 2 million, sometimes the recommended, their end of their career. They got, somewhere around 7 figures in the bank somewhere in total net worth, but like that's not in a checking account. Right. It's not like we're going to buy a whole Bitcoin with, 100,000 cash they just got on hand. And so it totally makes more sense. They're like, well, I've got my savings with Fidelity and I'm going to roll that, maybe put some of that. That's how the boomer mind works.
Yeah. And if you can just convince them, a modest allocation, 1 to 10% or something, then to me, that's going to be the way that a lot of older generations are orange pilled or have already been orange pilled. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of having something like the ETF is for those rolling overs. But, I just kind of talking about this Thanksgiving, we're recording this on Tuesday, Thanksgiving's in 2 days. It'll go out a few days after Thanksgiving on Saturday. If the sell didn't work back in the day, why would it work this Thanksgiving? Is my thought. Unless you're talking about that one family member who listened to what you said, did a little supplementary research, actually started asking questions and looking into the problems Bitcoin solves. And then they're like, okay, now I'm ready to invest. I consider that investor, and maybe this isn't fair because that's the whole point of orange pilling, but that's a whole different category of Bitcoin holder to me versus the person who's, whose cousin of son, what have you, said, hey, buy this thing. And they said, sure, but they don't know anything about it. I guess those people, I don't really know what's going to convince them this year as they're looking at what happened with Bitcoin's price. Bitcoin's price selling off from the all-time high while Bitcoiners might get a little giddy, a little fire sale. No one else sees it that way.
Yeah, that is terrifying to people.
So, yeah, I have an open-ended question.
Yeah. But counterpoint, it's been 16 years and everybody's seen Bitcoin not die a billion times by now. There are probably people out there. It's entirely possible that your family didn't realize Bitcoin hit $100,000. So they may not actually know it's down because they don't probably pay as close attention to the price. I've overheard, in coffee shops, people who they don't speak with that certain crypto derangement that you can tell someone's kind of into crypto. And they'll say things like Bitcoin's down, and I'll hear somewhere in that them say something like, might be a good buying opportunity. So it's I feel like we kind of won a lot of that battle. Now the question is it's still really difficult to get someone to actually then make the leap. There's the admission that it might be a good buying opportunity, but then it's when do you buy? And this is where we're 25 minutes in. I'll say in total seriousness, the only thing I will actually endorse, as a specific strategy, is to dollar cost average. This is the only advice I've really seriously given for so many years. I love to talk about meme coins. I love to talk about equities. I love to talk about goofy speculative things. I don't bind myself to the mast of even, of touching those things. Those are fun, more conceptual things to discuss. The DCA. Buy a little bit every week, buy $10 every week, buy several $100s every week, depending on whatever your goal is. That is the way that you most reliably and comfortably acquire Bitcoin and become the most armored against volatility and price movements. I like to use River Financial from the report that we just produced. They're really good, makes it really simple for people, but there's a bunch of services like that. Cash App, we often refer. I'll actually show you one of my little hacks, Colin. That I found this is one of the most effective ways of orange pilling people. River has this text Bitcoin to anyone feature,
right?
Where you can send somebody a text message and it allows them to click a link and claim that Bitcoin, and they can either claim it directly to a wallet that they create through any, wallet app, or through the River platform. So I don't know. River, sponsor the podcast. We love you. But also at the same time, if you want a brain dead, easy thing of something that I've found to be tried and true to get people off zero, that is has been one of my favorite easy hacks once I broach the subject of I
think that's the easiest way to get most people on board, because the idea of throwing $10, even $1,000, $10,000, $1,000 into Bitcoin at any one time, $100, no matter what it is, depending on the person's financial situation, it can be a lot of money. And the idea of dropping a few grand on something and then it's worth 30% less than that in just a month scares people.
Yeah.
So dollar cost averaging, I big agree. I also use River. I've used Cash App in the past. Both of those are really, really solid platforms for that.
Cash App's one of the best just because people, I really don't like having people install just another app. They probably already have Cash App on their phone. It's just why it's the easiest. I mean, if they have 55 million users, of which the majority are in the US, chances are there's several people at your holiday dinner with Cash App. Some might even use as their primary bank. I think I'll close with this, which is the one detail I led the newsletter this week. 1 in 7 Americans own Bitcoin. That means if you have one of those extended family dinners, you're probably not alone anymore. You're probably not the only crazy person at the table. Sometimes it just becomes a numbers game. If you can find that other cousin who you don't really talk to, but the one thing you have in common is some kind of Bitcoin or broader crypto interest, ally with them. Pincer attack the topic with your allies, or maybe it's your crazy drunk gold bug uncle who is absolutely riding on cloud 9 this year. maybe get them involved. Maybe they'll start to feel like genius. Maybe they have a few. Maybe they'll throw a spare gold bar into some Bitcoin this year. So
we're a little too teetotaling in the Harper household for the drunk uncle, but we do have a grumpy uncle who's never quite understood Bitcoin. And shout out to my cousin-in-law, Joe, and my cousin, Ryan, if y'all are listening to this, you know what I mean. And just going back to the pincer movement on the cousins, we'll have to apply that during our next family gathering.
It's Sun Tzu probably wrote about it in The Art of War. And someone else needs to make a book full of aphorisms called The Art of Orange Pilling.
The Art of Orange Pilling.
Anyway, that's enough. We hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Christmas is around the corner. Hopefully Bitcoin goes up, but again,
who knows?
Who the heck knows? Don't be the person who gets your drunk uncle homeless this year, but also, if you make any progress, consider that a win. Thanks.
Gobble, gobble, y'all.
Gobble, gobble. Bye.